And it includes this. Another G4S employee is appearing before the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court this morning. Now, he has been arrested for allegedly helping Thabo Bester escape prison. Police say the 51-year-old was arrested yesterday at the Mangaung Correctional Centre. And our senior reporter, ENC's Slindelo Masikane, joins us now to give us the very latest on this story. Slee, good morning to you, colleague. It seems, the story and the saga continues in the Thabo Bester issues. Police Minister Begicele did promise that there would be more arrests. What else do you have for us?
Certainly so, Dumelo. We know that law enforcement, in essence, is under pressure to ensure that all those who have been implicated in this escape saga are brought to justice. Now, earlier this week, we were actually here back at the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court, where we saw, in essence, another appearance of 4 others who have been implicated and connected to the Thabo escape saga. One of them, the first accused, is a controller from the Mangaung Correctional Centre. They have been labelled as one of the masterminds behind this particular escape. We also have Dr. Nandi Pamakutumana's father, who's been released on 10,000 Rand bail. He's also been implicated in this escape saga, as well as Dr. Nandipa herself, and a CCTV technician, which was contracted by G4S. And at the time of the escape, we understand he has been accused of switching off the cameras for about 8 hours on the 3rd of May 2022. Now, today, we're seeing the 5th suspect, who we understand was arrested yesterday while at work at the Mangaung Correctional Centre, and will be making their first appearance in court. We're not expecting particularly long proceedings, Dumelo. It is a first appearance, and chances are he will only appear perhaps after 11 a.m. When the docket has made its way to the courthouse. And of course, as media houses, we'll also have to make a fresh application to be allowed to film and take those proceedings live inside court. We do have a clip from the police services spokesperson. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
The suspect was arrested on Tuesday at the Mangaung Correctional Centre in Bloemfontein. He faces a charge of assisting an inmate to escape from lawful custody, as well as defeating the ends of justice. Police investigations continue into the escape from lawful custody of Thabo Bester. Our team's investigations are at a very advanced and critical stage. We continue to gather and collect evidence between Gauteng and the Free State. We cannot at this stage rule out the possibility of more arrests in this matter. We also continue to welcome the assistance from members of the public who continue to share information with law enforcement authorities.
Well, hearing from SAP's spokesperson, they're saying they could not rule out possibilities of more arrests, Lee, but this just tells you about the complexity of this case and how many more hands and, involvement surely have contributed to this escape.
Certainly so. We know that there are internal investigations taking place by the Department of Correctional Services that has, of course, taken over the running of the Mangaung prison by invoking Section 112 of the Correctional Services Act. But I think in terms of the arrests themselves, what South Africans are expecting to see from law enforcement is whether we're going to see any high-ranking officials who are going to be implicated and brought before the courts. At this point, we've got those who were working at the facility, those who were implicated, like Dr. Nandipa, as well as her father, who have been brought to face some of the charges they're facing. But many of the experts we've been speaking to are saying that if those high-ranking officials are not brought to book, then it's just going to make a mockery out of this entire process, because they're saying that for Bester to have really pulled an escape of this magnitude off, it required a lot of assistance from officials within DCS as well as G4S as well. And we've seen some of the scathing remarks made by MPs during that portfolio committee sitting over the past 2 weeks, where a number of officials from these various entities had to be held accountable. And we have been promised that there are going to be more arrests. This is the latest one, and so we will be watching with a close eye exactly what else develops out of these proceedings.
Yeah, and so just speaking about obviously the MPs weighing in and going in on both, Police Minister Behicele, Minister Ron Lamola, G4S was not left unscathed. I mean, the contract that they share, a public-private partnership with government, came into question. 45 million rands being paid monthly. The question is, would the Ministry of Correctional Service still honour that contract, given the amount of arrests that we're now seeing of some of those current or even former employees of G4S?
Well, from what we understand, the Department of Justice and Correctional Services is currently seeking legal advice around that particular contract. We know the contract with G4S in terms of the Mangaung prison ends in 2026. And of course, in terms of some of the penalties they're going to face for this escape is what's really what's under review at the moment. But from what we understand, the department has said that after 2026, there won't be a renewal of this particular contract. And of course, those in the sector have raised concerns around how, these private-public partnerships seemingly benefit the private contractors and not necessarily the state. But the department has come out to say that these private-public partnerships have benefited in terms of being able to accommodate the prison numbers, in terms of the number of prisoners that need to be accommodated, that simply the state could not on its own accommodate and needed to get into these contracts. And so I think we'll also be watching those developments quite closely, Dumelo, to see exactly what the department is going to do, because calls are growing for that particular contract to be cancelled before 2026.
Absolutely. And I remember, of course, Minister Ron Lamola as well, colleague, speaking to our colleague, Prof. JJ Dabani, saying it's a process because they would need to then, understand where exactly are the prisoners within Mangaung going to be placed. Should they dismiss this contract? Who would be able to take up the amount of work administratively, logistically? It's not something that happens overnight. So as those consultations occur and do continue, we'll keep a close eye on this matter, and with yourself as well, looking at the first court appearance of the 51-year-old that was just arrested, that G4S employee implicated in this matter. Slee, we'll be sure to come back to you as soon as there are other developments. That's our senior reporter, Slindelo Masikane.